Bill Gates, the boy who changed the world. Hello, my amazing friends. Today I have something truly special for you. Listen carefully because this story will change the way you think about intelligence, ambition, and the power of vision. He is one of the most brilliant minds the world has ever seen. He built an empire that transformed how every human being lives, works, and communicates. You must have heard about Microsoft, Windows, personal computers in every home. These are not just products. They are the result of one man's extraordinary vision, a vision that seemed impossible, ridiculous, even crazy. His influence is so great that the modern digital age would not exist without him. Many technologies, software programs, and innovations we use today came from his brilliant mind and relentless drive. But how did he become Bill Gates, one of the richest and most influential people in human history? He was not born into extreme poverty, but he wasn't handed success either. He was a nerdy, awkward boy who loved computers when nobody even knew what computers were. He dropped out of Harvard, he took massive risks, he fought giant corporations, and he won. So if you are learning today, if you have a vision that others call crazy, if people tell you your dreams are too big, this story is for you. Because Bill Gates himself started as an obsessed teenager in a small computer lab. This is a story of genius, obsession, ruthless competition, and ultimately redemption. So sit back, listen carefully, and enjoy. This will not only inspire you, but also show you that intelligence without action means nothing. Vision without execution changes nothing. But when you combine both, you can change the entire world. The beginning, a privileged but complicated childhood. It was October 28, 1955, in Seattle, Washington. In a comfortable, upper-middle-class home, a baby boy was born to William H. Gates Sr. and Mary Maxwell Gates. They named him William Henry Gates III, but everyone would call him Bill. Seattle in the 1950s was a beautiful, rainy city in the Pacific Northwest. The Gates family lived well. Bill's father was a prominent attorney, successful, respected, intelligent. His mother, Mary, came from a wealthy banking family and was heavily involved in civic organizations and charity work. Young Bill was not born into poverty. He had advantages that many children didn't have. But money and comfort don't automatically create genius. What Bill had was something far more valuable, an insatiable curiosity and a mind that worked differently from everyone else's. From the very beginning, Bill was unusual. While other toddlers played with toys, Bill wanted to understand how things worked. He would take apart mechanical objects just to see their insides. He asked endless questions. Why was his favorite word. His parents noticed something special about him, but they also noticed something concerning. Bill was intensely competitive, obsessively so. Whether it was board games with his family or simple card games, Bill hated losing. He would throw tantrums if he didn't win. His mother, Mary, was a strong, ambitious woman who pushed Bill hard. She had high expectations. She believed in excellence, discipline, and achievement. She would often say, if you're going to do something, be the best at it. But Bill was also difficult, stubborn, argumentative. He would challenge his parents on everything. Family dinners often turned into debates, with young Bill refusing to accept answers with logical proof. At age 11, his parents were so concerned about his behavior, his defiance, his mood swings, his intense personality, that they sent him to a therapist. The therapist worked with Bill for over a year. Years later, Bill would admit that those sessions taught him an important lesson. He could not control his parents. They were who they were, but he could control himself. He could choose his battles. he could channel his intensity into something productive. And that's exactly what he did. He found computers and everything changed. The discovery: falling in love with computers. In 1967, when Bill was 13 years old, his parents enrolled him at Lakeside School, an exclusive private school in Seattle. It was one of the best schools in the country, rigorous, challenging, filled with wealthy, intelligent students. Lakeside had something most schools in America didn't have in 1968: a computer. Not a personal computer. Those didn't exist yet. It was a teletype terminal connected to a mainframe computer that the school rented time on. To use this computer, you had to type commands on a keyboard, wait for the machine to process them, and receive results printed on paper. It was slow, clunky, and extremely expensive. 1 hour of computer time cost the school hundreds of dollars. But for Bill Gates, it was love at first sight. The moment he sat down at that terminal, he was hooked, completely obsessed. He had found his purpose. Bill spent every free moment in that computer lab, before school, after school, weekends. He skipped sports, he skipped social activities. All he wanted to do was program. His parents were worried. They thought his obsession was unhealthy. They tried to limit his time, but Bill was unstoppable. He would sneak out of his house at night, walk to the University of Washington, and use their computers until dawn. At Lakeside, Bill met another student who shared his obsession, Paul Allen. Paul was 2 years older than Bill, tall and laid back, where Bill was short and intense, but they connected instantly. They spoke the same language, the language of computers. Together, Paul and Bill spent thousands of hours programming. They weren't just playing around. They were teaching themselves advanced programming concepts. They were solving complex problems. They were learning faster than their teachers could teach them. But computers were expensive. The school could only afford so much. So Bill and Paul did something clever. They found companies that owned computers and offered to test their systems for free. In exchange, they got unlimited computer time. One company, Computer Center Corporation, hired them to find bugs in their system. Bill and Paul were in heaven. Unlimited computer access, for free. They worked night and day, finding security flaws, testing the limits of the system. But then they got caught doing something they shouldn't, exploiting the system to get extra time. CCC banned them. Bill was devastated. His access to computers was cut off. But this setback taught Bill something crucial. Rules are just obstacles. If you're smart enough, you can find a way around them. If one door closes, you find another door, or you create your own door.
And that's exactly what Bill did. He found another company that needed programmers, then another, then another. By the time Bill was 16 years old, he was already earning money as a programmer, actual professional work. One company, TRW, was building software for the power grid. They hired Bill and Paul to fix bugs in their code. Bill was still in high school, but he was doing work that college graduates struggled with. But what Bill really wanted was to build something of his own, not just fix other people's problems. He wanted to create, to innovate, to change the game. And in 1973, his opportunity arrived. The first venture, Trafo Data and Early Lessons. In 1972, when Bill was just 17 years old, he and Paul Allen started their first company, Trafo Data. The idea was simple but clever. Cities needed to analyze traffic patterns to optimize traffic lights. They would place rubber tubes across roads that counted cars, but processing this data was slow and manual. Bill and Paul created a device that could automatically process traffic data using a microprocessor. They built the hardware, they wrote the software, they even pitched it to potential customers. Trafo Data made about $20,000, not bad for 2 teenagers.
But more importantly, it taught Bill crucial lessons about business. Lesson 1. Technology alone isn't enough. You need customers who will actually pay for it. Lesson 2. Execution matters more than ideas. Everyone has ideas. Few people can actually build and deliver. Lesson 3. Partnerships are everything. Bill realized that he and Paul complemented each other. Bill was the strategic, business-minded one. Paul was the technical visionary. But Trafo data eventually failed. The technology worked, but the business didn't scale. Cities weren't ready to adopt it. The market wasn't mature enough. Bill was disappointed, but not defeated. He was learning, and every failure was just data, information that would help him succeed next time. In 1973, Bill Gates graduated from Lakeside School with a perfect score on his SATs, 1,600 out of 1,600. He was accepted to Harvard University, one of the most prestigious universities in the world. His parents were thrilled. Their brilliant son was going to Harvard. He would become a lawyer like his father, or maybe a doctor, or a professor, something respectable, something safe. But Bill had other plans, plans that would soon shock his family and change his life forever. Harvard, the dropout who changed everything. In the fall of 1973, Bill Gates arrived at Harvard. He was 18 years old, brilliant, and completely out of place. Harvard was filled with the best students in the world, future lawyers, doctors, politicians, scholars. But Bill wasn't interested in any of that. He took mostly math and computer science courses. He played poker obsessively. He stayed up all night in the computer lab. He skipped classes he found boring. His professors noticed his genius, but also his arrogance. Bill would challenge them in class, arguing that their methods were inefficient. He didn't respect authority. He only respected logic and results. But Bill was restless. Harvard felt like a waste of time. He wasn't learning anything new. He was just jumping through hoops to get a degree he didn't want. Meanwhile, Paul Allen had moved to Boston and was working for Honeywell. He would visit Bill at Harvard regularly. They would talk for hours about computers, about the future, about opportunities. And then, in December 1974, everything changed. Paul Allen was walking through Harvard Square when he saw something on a magazine cover that made his heart stop. It was the January 1975 issue of Popular Electronics. On the cover was a photograph of a device called the Altair 8800. The headline read, "World's First Minicomputer Kit to Rival Commercial Models." Paul ran to Bill's dorm room. He was breathless, excited. He showed Bill the magazine. Bill stared at the cover. His mind raced. This was it. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The personal computer revolution was beginning right now, and if they didn't act immediately, they would miss it forever. Bill and Paul didn't own an Altair. They had never even seen one, but they knew it used the Intel 8080 microprocessor, and they knew that it needed software, a programming language that regular people could use. So Bill did something audacious. He called MITS, the company that made the Altair, and told them he had written a basic programming language for their machine. This was a lie. Bill hadn't written anything yet. He was bluffing. But the president of MITS, Ed Roberts, was interested. He said, "If you can demonstrate it, we'll consider licensing it." Bill and Paul now had a deadline. They had to create a working basic interpreter for a machine they didn't own in just a few weeks. What happened next was one of the most legendary programming feats in history. Bill and Paul locked themselves in the Harvard computer lab. They worked night and day, barely sleeping, barely eating. They wrote thousands of lines of code on the Harvard mainframe, simulating the Altair's processor. They had no way to test if it would actually work on a real Altair. They were programming blind, based purely on technical specifications. 8 weeks later, Paul Allen flew to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where MITS was headquartered. He carried a paper tape with their basic interpreter.
He had never seen an Altair in person. He didn't know if their code would work. He loaded the tape into the Altair. Everyone held their breath. And then it worked perfectly on the first try. Ed Roberts was stunned. He asked, "How did you do this?" Paul just smiled. He and Bill had done the impossible. They had written perfect software for a machine they never touched. MITS agreed to license their BASIC interpreter. Bill and Paul had just created the first commercial software for a personal computer. And Bill Gates made the biggest decision of his life. In 1975, after just 2 years at Harvard, he dropped out. His parents were horrified. His friends thought he was insane. But Bill knew something they didn't. The future was happening right now, and he wasn't going to miss it.
On April 4, 1975, Bill Gates and Paul Allen founded a company. They called it Microsoft. They would later drop the hyphen. Bill was 19 years old. Microsoft was born, and the world would never be the same. The rise, building an empire. In 1975, Microsoft was just 2 guys in Albuquerque, New Mexico, writing software for hobbyist computers. They worked out of a small office. They had a few employees. They were making some money, but nothing extraordinary. But Bill Gates had a vision that no one else saw. He believed that someday every home, every office, every person in the world would have a personal computer, and all those computers would need software. People laughed at this idea. Personal computers were toys, expensive toys for nerds. Why would regular people ever need them? But Bill didn't care what people thought. He saw the future clearly, and he was determined to own it. Microsoft's early years were chaotic. Bill worked insanely long hours, 16, 18, 20 hours a day. He slept under his desk. He drove like a maniac. He got multiple speeding tickets. He was arrested once for driving without a license. Bill was intense, aggressive, and absolutely relentless. He would scream at employees if their code wasn't perfect. He would work through entire weekends without sleep. He expected everyone to be as obsessed as he was. In 1979, Microsoft moved from Albuquerque to Bellevue, Washington, near Seattle. They were growing. They had about 25 employees and revenues of $2.5 million. But Bill wanted more, much more, and in 1980 an opportunity arrived that would change everything, a phone call from IBM. IBM, International Business Machines, was the most powerful computer company in the world. They built massive mainframe computers for corporations and governments. They were giants, and they were finally entering the personal computer market. But they needed an operating system, and they had heard about this young company called Microsoft. In July 1980, IBM executives came to Seattle to meet with Bill Gates. Bill was 24 years old. He looked even younger, skinny, baby-faced, wearing his typical informal clothes. The IBM executives were skeptical. This kid was supposed to help them, but they quickly realized Bill was no ordinary kid. He was brilliant, strategic, and unbelievably confident. IBM asked Microsoft to create an operating system for their new personal computer. But here's the thing, Microsoft didn't have an operating system. They only made programming languages. But Bill said yes anyway. He would figure it out. He always did. Bill knew that a programmer named Gary Kildall owned an operating system called CP/M. Bill tried to make a deal with Kildall to license his OS for IBM, but Kildall refused to meet with IBM. Some say he was flying his airplane that day, others say he just didn't think IBM was important. It was the biggest mistake of Kildall's life, because Bill Gates never missed opportunities. Bill found another company, Seattle Computer Products, that had created an operating system called QDOS, Quick and Dirty Operating System. Bill bought it for $50,000. Then he modified it, renamed it MS-DOS, Microsoft Disk Operating System, and licensed it to IBM. But here's the genius move. Bill didn't sell MS-DOS to IBM, he licensed it, meaning Microsoft retained ownership. This meant that when other companies started making IBM-compatible computers, clones, they all needed MS-DOS, and they all had to pay Microsoft. It was one of the smartest business deals in history. Bill Gates had just positioned Microsoft to dominate the entire personal computer industry. The IBM PC launched in August 1981 with MS-DOS as its operating system. It was a massive success. Within a few years, the IBM PC became the standard for business computing, and every single one of those computers ran Microsoft software. By 1983, Microsoft's revenues hit $50 million. By 1984, they surpassed $100 million. Bill Gates, at just 28 years old, was becoming one of the richest people in America, but he was just getting started. Windows. The vision becomes reality. MS-DOS was powerful, but it was text-based. You had to type commands. It was intimidating for regular people. Bill knew that the future of computing wasn't typing commands, it was clicking on pictures, icons, windows. In 1984, Apple launched the Macintosh, a revolutionary computer with a graphical user interface. You could point and click with a mouse. It was beautiful, intuitive, easy to use. Steve Jobs, Apple's founder, had seen GUI technology at Xerox PARC and adapted it for the Mac. Now Bill Gates saw it on the Mac and knew immediately this was the future. So Bill decided Microsoft would create its own GUI operating system. He called it Windows. The first version of Windows launched in November 1985. It was terrible, slow, buggy, barely functional. Critics mocked it. Apple even sued Microsoft, claiming they had stolen the Mac's look and feel. But Bill didn't give up. He kept improving Windows, version 2.0, version 3.0, each one better than the last. And then in 1990, Windows 3.0 launched, and it was a phenomenon. It was fast, stable, and compatible with thousands of programs. It sold over 10 million copies in its first 2 years. Windows had finally delivered on Bill's vision. Suddenly, Microsoft dominated not just DOS, but also graphical operating systems. They were everywhere, in homes, offices, schools, governments. On March 13, 1986, Microsoft went public. The stock opened at $21 per share. By the end of the day, Bill Gates was worth $350 million. At 30 years old, he was one of the youngest self-made billionaires in history. But becoming rich didn't change his work ethic. He still worked grueling hours. He still reviewed every line of code. He still pushed his employees relentlessly. Microsoft's campus in Redmond, Washington, became famous for its intense culture. Bill would conduct brutal Bill reviews, where he would tear apart people's ideas. His favorite insults: "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. This is completely brain-dead." People either loved him or hated him, but everyone respected him, because Bill demanded excellence, and he delivered results. Throughout the 1990s, Microsoft dominated. Windows 95, 1995, sold 7 million copies in 5 weeks. Windows 98, Windows 2000, Windows XP. Microsoft Office became the standard for business productivity. Internet Explorer crushed Netscape in the browser wars. By 1995, Bill Gates was the richest person in the world. His net worth exceeded $12 billion. By 1999, it hit $100 billion. Microsoft was valued at over $600 billion at its peak. Bill Gates had achieved something unprecedented. He had built the most valuable company on Earth. But with great power came great enemies, and soon Bill would face the biggest fight of his life. The fall, the antitrust battle. By the late 1990s, Microsoft controlled over 90% of the personal computer operating system market. They were everywhere. They were unstoppable. They were a monopoly.
And that made them a target. Competitors complained that Microsoft used unfair practices, bundling Internet Explorer with Windows to kill Netscape, forcing PC manufacturers to pre-install only Microsoft software, crushing any company that threatened their dominance. In 1998, the United States Department of Justice, along with 20 state attorneys general, filed an antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft. The charge? Illegal monopolization and anti-competitive practices. It was the biggest antitrust case since the breakup of AT&T, and Bill Gates was at the center of it. The trial began in 1998. Bill was forced to give a videotaped deposition. It was a disaster. He was evasive, argumentative, and combative. He played word games. He claimed he couldn't remember key details. He seemed arrogant. The media tore him apart. People who once admired him now saw him as a ruthless monopolist. His reputation was shattered. Microsoft was portrayed as an evil empire destroying innovation. In April 2000, Judge Thomas Penfield Jackson ruled against Microsoft. He declared that Microsoft had violated antitrust laws and ordered the company to be broken into two separate entities, one for operating systems, one for applications. It was a crushing blow. Bill Gates faced the possibility of losing everything he had built. His empire could be dismantled by government order. But Bill fought back. Microsoft appealed the decision. They hired the best lawyers. They lobbied Washington. They fought with everything they had. In 2001, a federal appeals court overturned the breakup order, but they upheld the ruling that Microsoft had violated antitrust laws. Eventually, Microsoft settled with the Department of Justice, agreeing to restrictions on their business practices, but avoiding breakup. Bill had survived, but the experience changed him. He realized that being the richest person in the world also made him the biggest target, that power without responsibility was dangerous. And slowly, Bill Gates began to transform, from ruthless businessman to something entirely different, a philanthropist who would give away his fortune to save the world. The transformation, from businessman to philanthropist. In 1994, Bill married Melinda French, a Microsoft executive he had met at a company event. Melinda was intelligent, grounded, and deeply compassionate. She saw sides of Bill that most people never saw: his vulnerabilities, his fears, his desire to make a difference. Together, Bill and Melinda started talking about what they would do with their fortune. At first, they created small charitable foundations, but in 2000, they merged these into one massive organization, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Bill committed to giving away the majority of his wealth, not when he died, but while he was still alive, so he could see the impact. The foundation focused on three main areas: global health, fighting diseases like malaria, tuberculosis, polio, and HIV/AIDS, education, improving schools and access to education, and poverty, helping the poorest people in the world. In 2006, Warren Buffett, the legendary investor and Bill's close friend, pledged $30 billion of his own fortune to the Gates Foundation. It became the largest private charitable foundation in history. In 2008, Bill stepped down from his day-to-day role at Microsoft. He devoted himself full time to philanthropy. The kid who had built the most valuable company on Earth was now trying to solve the world's biggest problems. Bill approached charity the same way he approached software, with data, metrics, and measurable results. He didn't just throw money at problems. He studied them, analyzed them, and found innovative solutions. The Gates Foundation has since helped eradicate polio from nearly every country on Earth, saved millions of lives by funding vaccines and disease prevention, provided clean water and sanitation to millions of people, invested billions in education reform, committed over $50 billion to charitable causes. In 2010, Bill and Melinda created the Giving Pledge, a commitment of the world's wealthiest people to give away at least half their fortune to charity. Over 200 billionaires have signed it, pledging hundreds of billions of dollars. Bill Gates transformed from one of the most hated men in business to one of the most respected philanthropists in the world. He had found a new purpose, using his wealth, his intellect, and his obsessive drive to solve humanity's greatest challenges. The personal cost, divorce, and reflection. But even with all his success, Bill's personal life remained complicated. In May 2021, after 27 years of marriage, Bill and Melinda announced their divorce. The world was shocked. They released a statement saying they could no longer grow together as a couple, but would continue working together at their foundation. Later, details emerged about the reasons: Bill's past relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, allegations of inappropriate workplace behavior at Microsoft, and fundamental differences in their relationship. The divorce was painful, public, and humbling for Bill. His carefully crafted image as a reformed hero took another hit. He was forced to confront his past mistakes, his failures as a husband, and the consequences of his actions. In interviews after the divorce, Bill admitted he had regrets. He said he wished he had been a better partner. He acknowledged that his obsessive work habits had damaged his personal relationships. It was a moment of reckoning. Bill Gates, the man who had conquered technology and business, realized that some things can't be solved with logic and data. Some things, like love, family, and personal relationships, require vulnerability, humility, and emotional intelligence. For the first time in his life, Bill seemed genuinely reflective about what matters most: not market share, not net worth, not legacy, but human connection. Today, Bill Gates is 65 years old. He has lived one of the most extraordinary lives in human history, from a curious boy in Seattle to the creator of Microsoft, from the richest person on Earth to a philanthropist trying to save millions of lives, from a ruthless monopolist to a man seeking redemption through giving. His net worth is still over $100 billion, making him one of the wealthiest people alive. But he is committed to giving away 99.6% of his fortune. When he dies, his children will inherit only a tiny fraction, about $10 million each. The rest will go to solving global problems.
But what makes Bill Gates truly significant is not his wealth. It's what his life teaches us about intelligence, ambition, and the evolution of purpose. Lesson 1. Vision matters more than perfection. Bill's first version of Windows was terrible, but he kept improving it. He didn't wait for perfection. He started, learned, and adapted. Lesson 2. Obsession is a superpower if directed properly. Bill's obsessive personality could have destroyed him. Instead, he channeled it into building Microsoft and later into saving lives through philanthropy. Lesson 3. The biggest opportunities come disguised as risks. Dropping out of Harvard, buying QDOS for $50,000, licensing MS-DOS instead of selling it, these risky decisions created Bill's empire. Lesson 4. Competition is brutal. You must be relentless. Bill didn't succeed by being nice. He succeeded by outworking, outsmarting, and outmaneuvering his competition. Business is war, and Bill fought to win. Lesson 5. Success without purpose is hollow. Bill spent decades accumulating wealth, but only when he started giving it away did he find true fulfillment. Meaning comes from contribution, not accumulation. Lesson 6. You can reinvent yourself at any age. Bill transformed from software nerd to business titan to philanthropist. Your past doesn't define your future. You can always become someone new. Lesson 7. Intelligence without emotional wisdom is incomplete. Bill's genius built an empire, but his emotional blindness cost him his marriage and reputation. True success requires both IQ and EQ. The present, still fighting, still learning. Bill Gates is not done yet. Even at 69, he continues to work, learn, and fight for causes he believes in. He writes a popular blog, Gates Notes, where he shares book recommendations, thoughts on technology, and reflections on global issues. He reads about 50 books per year, constantly learning, constantly evolving. He has become one of the world's leading voices on climate change, investing billions in clean energy technologies. He wrote a book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, outlining practical solutions. When COVID-19 hit in 2020, Bill was one of the first to warn about pandemic risks. The Gates Foundation committed billions to vaccine development and distribution, helping save countless lives. His critics still attack him. Conspiracy theorists spread wild accusations. Some people will never forgive his Microsoft monopoly days. Others question his influence over global health policy. But Bill keeps moving forward because he learned the most important lesson of all. You can't please everyone. You can only stay true to your mission and do the work. Final message: find your obsession. My amazing friends, you have a dream, right? Maybe you want to build something, create something, change something, but sometimes you doubt yourself. You think you're not smart enough, not connected enough, not special enough. Let me tell you something powerful today. Bill Gates was not the smartest programmer in the world. He was not the most creative. He was not the most likable. But he had something more important than any of those things. He had obsession. He had vision. He had the relentless drive to turn his dreams into reality, no matter what anyone said. When he saw that Altair on the magazine cover, he didn't hesitate. He didn't overthink it. He acted. When Harvard felt like a waste of time, he dropped out. When opportunities appeared, he grabbed them with both hands. You don't need to be a genius to change the world. You need to find something you're obsessed with, something that excites you so much that you'll work on it for 20 hours straight, something that matters to you more than comfort, more than approval, more than fear. Bill Gates teaches us that intelligence is common, vision is rare, and the combination of both with relentless execution is unstoppable. So, my friends, whatever your obsession is, whatever your vision is, whatever keeps you up at night with excitement, chase it, commit to it, work on it with everything you have. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel ready, because the perfect moment is now. The right time is today. Remember what Bill Gates proved. One person with a clear vision and unwavering commitment can literally change how billions of people live. That person could be you. Now, if this story inspired you even a little bit, then like this video so I know you felt the power of this message. Comment below and tell me, what's your obsession? What's your vision? Let's inspire each other. Subscribe and hit the bell icon because we are on a journey of learning, growing, and becoming unstoppable together. My amazing friends, your future is waiting for you. Find your obsession, build your vision, and never, ever stop learning. The world needs what only you can create. See you in the next video. Stay inspired, stay obsessed, stay unstoppable. Your vision is your destiny.